Welcome back to my final video reviewing the book Escaping Emotional Abuse, written by Lauren Matthias. This material was copyrighted in 2019. In addressing the structure of this book, I mentioned in the beginning this was self-published. I do not know the reasons behind that decision. One could surmise that it was due to a lack of interest from a publishing company. At the time the book became available, John and Lauren had launched their business, Strive Psychology, where Lauren was working as a relationship coach. It would be logical that this publication was used in Lauren's coaching. Self-publishing would likely decrease the time to availability. Regardless of the decision to self-publish, lack of a publishing house editor's input was immediately obvious. The text frequently changed to all caps and bold without consistency. Sometimes this tactic indicated unspoken thoughts. Other times it indicated written responses from others, and it was also used just to give advice. At other times, it seemed to serve no apparent purpose. Capitalization of chapter titles was also inconsistent. For example, in Chapter 4 entitled Leaving for a New Story, the first letter was capitalized in Leaving, New, and Story. In Chapter 18, Lessons on Repeat, only the L in Lessons was capitalized. While insignificant, an editor would have fixed this. Several other examples could have been noted. But on a positive note, I observed only a couple of grammatical errors and no misspellings, most likely a reflection of Lauren's journalism experience. The flow of the book was often confusing. Aunt Ruth Ann's death is introduced in the second chapter, well before we know about her influence in Lauren's life. We don't learn until almost the end of the book important details about how Lauren and her husband met, and that the relationship had red flags all over it from the beginning. Again, an editor would have been helpful in shaping a book with better flow and timelines. Secondly, let's discuss the contents of the book itself. Lauren provides an abundance of detail regarding the dysfunction of her relatively short marriage, perhaps an overabundance. While reading the book, I was confused as to why Lauren's husband's maddening behavior was tolerated for as long as it was. I also felt frustrated that Lauren continued to be filled with self-doubt and her stubborn desire to make the marriage work, to keep her dreams alive. Lauren was a beautiful woman with talent. Her staying with an abusive man made no sense. As the book neared its end, I understood that Lauren was making a point, that it did seem ludicrous to stay in such an unhealthy relationship. For anyone that had lived a similar experience, this would certainly resonate. Leaving for the unknown can be too difficult until the present is finally enough. I give Lauren credit for being transparent with her weaknesses. She did not shy away from sharing the numerous times that despite her better judgment, she gave in. While I firmly believe Lauren's ex was not a good boyfriend or husband, I had hoped Lauren would have taken more responsibility for her part as a message to those she was trying to help in sharing her story. Lauren does not truly leave until her husband tells her no. Do not come see me. But then she begins to take the baby steps to make a new life. The photo at the end of her story with the beloved husband and newborn son was inspirational. A promotional summary is printed on the back cover of this book. One of the paragraphs touts, "Join thousands who have followed Lauren's journey on Instagram and through her blog to learn how she rediscovers genuine love and happiness." As I mentioned during my review, I wish that some of these posts would have been shared. If social media inspired Lauren to write this book, it wasn't air to admit the content, in my opinion. In summary, I did my best to cover this publication with respect. I did not share photos that clearly belonged to Lauren. While not having sought permission from the author, I acknowledge the times I chose to include passages word for word. I recognize that my review was far from professional. As a tiny channel that is not monetized, I could not justify taking the extra time, though I truly wanted to. Nonetheless, I appreciate all of you that listen to these episodes. Thank you so much. I welcome your thoughts about this book in the comments section below.